This is Wizard Grandpa's Stories.
La 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 la. Oh, there you are. How nice to see you. Welcome to Wizard Grandpa's Stories. Today, I'm going to tell you the story of the Elves and the Shoemaker. Now, once upon a time, there was a cobbler, a shoemaker, who made the shoes for all the people in his village. Now, at this time, he was becoming very poor. He didn't have much money and people were not buying shoes. And he only had one piece of leather left with which to make a pair of shoes. So he sat there and cut the leather into the shape of the shoes and left it on his workbench. The next day he would make that very last pair of shoes and hopefully sell it. He went to bed and his wife went to bed. And he got up early the next morning to make the shoes. And he found that instead of 2 pieces of leather on the workbench, there were 2 finished, complete, and beautiful shoes sitting there. How did that happen? He didn't know. But then suddenly a man came into the shop and he looked at those shoes and said, "Those are just the right thing for me." And he tried the shoes on and they were so comfy. He paid a lot of money for them. Well, the cobbler took his money and went out and bought some more leather and cut the leather into the shapes needed for 2 pairs of shoes. And he left the leather on his workbench and went to bed. When he got up the next morning, on his workbench there were 2 pairs of completed shoes, beautiful shoes. Suddenly, 2 men came into the shop. They looked at those shoes and said, "Those are just the right shoes for me." And each man bought a pair of shoes and paid a lot of money because they were so comfy. And so the cobbler took the money and went out and bought even more leather and cut enough leather pieces to make 4 pairs of shoes. He left the leather on the workbench, went to bed, and the next morning 4 pairs of shoes were on the workbench. Finished, polished, beautifully made. And people came in the shop and bought them for a lot of money. And on it went. The cobbler bought some more leather, cut it into the right shape, left it on the workbench, and next morning, beautiful shoes were there. Well, the cobbler became very rich, but he didn't know how it was happening. So one day he said to his wife, "Wife, we have to find out. This is crazy. We have no idea how these shoes are being made." So they left a candle lit in the workroom, and they hid behind the blanket and watched what happened. And that night, at the stroke of midnight, 2 little elves appeared, each of them about the size of my hand. They appeared out of nowhere and jumped onto the workbench. But do you know what the strangest thing was? They had no clothes on. 2 naked elves. But that didn't bother them. They sat there and made shoes. Lots and lots of shoes, beautifully made, perfectly made. And when it was dawn, they jumped out and disappeared. The cobbler and his wife came out from their secret hiding place. "Well, well, well," said the cobbler. "I had no idea who was making the shoes, and I would never have guessed." "Yes," said his wife, "but those poor little things, they must be freezing. they have no clothes. I know what we should do, said the cobbler. Let's make them some clothes. It's the least we can do for them, for all that they have done for us. And tonight is Christmas Eve. Let's make them some presents. Yes, said his wife. You make them some shoes, I will make them a hat each. I will make them a coat each, a waistcoat, a shirt and trousers, so they will each have a lovely suit of clothes and new shoes. Yes, said the cobbler, what a wonderful idea. And that's what they did. So when the shop closed on Christmas Eve, on the bench there was no leather for shoes. There were 2 suits of beautiful new clothes, just the right size for the elves. The cobbler and his wife placed a candle on the workbench and hid secretly in the corner and watched. At midnight on Christmas Eve, the 2 little elves appeared. They jumped onto the bench where the leather is usually waiting for them. But there was no leather. There were clothes, 2 sets of clothes. Oh, they looked at those clothes and they laughed. And they danced around them with glee, laughing and laughing. And in the twinkle of an eye, they put the clothes on. They admired each other, laughed and laughed again. And then they waved at the cobbler and his wife, for they knew exactly where they were hiding. And they leapt off the bench and disappeared. And they were never seen again. But do you know something? The good luck which they had brought with them stayed with the cobbler and his wife, who became very, very rich and very kind to all of their neighbours and all of their friends. And that is the story of the elves and the shoemaker. And thank you for listening, all of you, children of all ages. Do come back again, and I look forward to seeing you soon. With lots of love from Wizard Grandpa. Bye, bye, bye. Bye.